And this is something that you see from this between life state, is sometimes there's soul agreements made where it may be that, okay, your experience will be to overcome adversity and to try and overcome your challenges. You've got all that potential to do something wonderful. I'll be the daughter that may come in, and I'll leave early, and then you'll then be left to. So sometimes there's soul agreements.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Witchy Wellness Radio. Again, this is a show you learn how your body and emotions are not in the way, they're actually leading the way. And today we're talking with Stephen Towill. He has been doing hypnosis since 17 years old and was an accountant for a large part of his life, but made the leap into hypnotherapy full time, both clinical, anxiety, working with the emotional issues, as well as spiritual. And we'll dive into this and so much more. You can check out his website in the show notes for more information about his story, but we will dive into that very shortly. I'm very excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Stephen.
Hi, Lauren. How are you doing?
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm ready to dive into all things hypnotherapy, past life, in between lives, which we talked a little bit off air. That's really interesting for us to possibly dive into a little bit later. But we always start off the show. I love hearing people's heroes' journeys of, how this work came into their own life. And it sounds like it's been such a part of you for a very, very long time. Could you give us kind of the abridged version of your story that led you to become this hypnotherapist and helping people all around the world today?
Yeah. Yes. As a kid, I was very curious about the unexplained. I can remember reading a book. My dad had this big thick book called The Unexplained. It was a Reader's Digest book, and it was all stories about, like, I don't know, Amityville horror, ghost stories, UFOs, everything unexplained. I just was fascinated as a kid. And then hypnosis, I think about 13, I saw it somewhere, and it just kind of piqued my curiosity, and I thought, what is this strange thing with the mind? And 17, I went to college, and first book I got at the library was in trying to find something on hypnotherapy or hypnosis, because I was just thinking, what is this? And then from there, it's always been there in the background. I used to do a lot of past life regression. I think my very first subject was my 6-year-old brother. I was 17, he was 6, and he was giving me all this past life experience. This kid at 6 talking about, he wrote children's books. He was married with a child. He was worried because he had a skin disease and he was dying, and he was scared of leaving his family behind, and he was naming places. And so I just remember 17-year-old, 6-year-old brother, and thinking, wow, this is weird, this works. So when I recommend going and start playing about your 6-year-old brother's mind and stuff, but that was, there was no internet back then. It was way back in 1991 or something. So I was looking for anything I could find on hypnosis at the time, and that probably led me into what I do today. Kind of took a back seat for quite a long time. It's always in the background. I still did it a little more as a hobby, but in the last 5-6 years, it became a lot more training in clinical hypnotherapy, helping people. And then while I was still doing a lot of the between lives and the past life stuff, and here I am today, still doing it as a living.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love hearing the story because it's so much, every time, it doesn't matter who's on the show, it's always such a part of your own healing story. And it's just like these things come right to you, whether it's something you have to overcome, something that just you've been guided to. It just, it's so magical to see how, it's really our subconscious manifesting all this into our lives, but how when we really just listen, we're really, really guided. And we've talked about hypnotherapy on the show probably a few years ago. Talk about the subconscious and unconscious a lot. But could you give us like a brief, hypnotherapy 101 before we start to kind of dive deeper into these subtopics,
Yeah.
what it is and how it kind of works?
Yeah. So again, it's that's one model of it, the conscious and the unconscious mind. So the idea being that I'm talking to you at the moment and my hands are up here. Now, why are my hands up here? I didn't consciously decide to lift my hands to speak to you, but there they are. So that was an unconscious response that happened. Like driving a car, you're maybe changing gears, turning steering wheels, pressing pedals, moving muscles. It's all unconscious learned response. So that's the idea that there's this part of the mind, a large part of the mind, that is creating all of this function. Our beliefs, our behaviors are all generated from this unconscious. And then you get your conscious awareness, which is the bit that's looking confused at my hands at the moment and thinking, why are they up there? So I guess what hypnosis is doing is it's a kind of a phenomena. No one really can explain it. They actually say if you ask 100 hypnotherapists what hypnosis is, they'll all give you different answers. But probably one of the most common answers is that it's a state of focus. So it's bringing focus to something specific about the mind and these unconscious processes. And I guess that's how people with, let's say you've got anxiety, then really there is some part of your mind that is worrying about something, it's anxious about some outcome or something may happen. So consciously, another part of your mind is even thinking, I shouldn't feel like that. It's not helping me. It's not conducive to my life. So in a way, it's a conflict. So with the hypnotherapy or hypnosis, it's really about focusing in on these elements in the mind. And by bringing focus to it, it brings it to the awareness where you can make changes or have experiences, understand spiritual aspects. If you think about people that meditate or channel, or they're again using some almost unconscious element of their mind that they're having to tap into to connect. So really, it's a horror. I don't like the word hypnosis because it comes from a Greek word hypnos, which is the Greek god of sleep, but it's not really sleep. It's actually it's more of an awakening. It's more of an experience. So some people may look like they're sleeping when they go sleep, but they're still aware. There's still an element there of awareness. So hypnosis for me is really just ways of tapping in to more of what the mind is and utilizing it, helping it, healing it, bringing experience and understanding. That's a rough idea.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I've experienced hypnosis quite a few times over the years in my own journey, and it is a different experience no matter like who I'm working with and what kind of styles they practice. And I think it's very attuned to like different brainwave states, like like you said, experienced meditators. When you get really, really relaxed and really become that observer, you're still there, but you're able to kind of see the bigger picture a lot easier.
Yeah, so you've got a critical mind, a part of the mind that will critique things. There's a guy, psychologist called, he was called, he's not alive now, but Piaget, Swiss psychologist who studied cognitive development. And he went through these stages of cognitive development. And between the ages of 2 and 7, they call it the pre-operational stage, where your critical mind is still not developed properly. So if you think about children that more likely to experience, we'll see ghosts, or I could tell you a whole pile of stories. Like I know of children that have experienced things. Even children, there was a guy called Professor Ian Stevenson that studied a lot into past life, and he actually says that about the ages of 7, that seems to be where children start to lose their awareness of it. So going into this concrete operational stage of cognitive development, that's where the critical mind starts to develop, and then we'll start to close down what is and what isn't. So yeah, so I think what we're trying to do there is, like you're saying, you're still aware there, but it's how much of the critical mind, this conscious awareness, is out the way enough to be able to access and guide someone through experiences. So yeah, you're still always there. You're always still in control. It's just people say stage hypnosis and think there's some mind control, but technically most of the people know what they're doing. It's just that it's almost like they believe that they're doing what they're told that they're doing, like they're a chicken or something. And even that idea that it's relaxation. Relaxation is actually only a suggestion. So it helps someone to just enjoy the experience. But if you think about a stage hypnotist, they've not got anybody relaxed. They've got them running about like lunatics half the time. So it's sort of, again, it's like it's not like the relaxation is almost like it's a suggestion that's been given just to help someone to let go a little bit and relax.
Yeah, that's true. Running about the stage like a chicken. Yeah, that's not that's not very relaxed.
Yeah.
And growing up, like that's what I thought of hypnosis, you know. I didn't really understand the benefits, and the more I came across my own spiritual and awakening journey, you know, past life regressions, contact experiences, you know, past lives, and you talk about in between lives. Before we dive into that, you know, the more clinical side, you know, for me, it doesn't matter. I've realized that sometimes I'm like, well, what past life did this trauma or this block come from? And sometimes that's kind of held me back from actually taking a look at the deeper wound or the trigger or the block.
Mhm.
So using hypnosis to get into this state, whatever, it's not a relaxed state, but this awareness, if you will, you're really able to experience the greater elements of who you are, as well as starting to overcome those blocks and expand your own acknowledge your own known your own understanding and knowledge, and
Yeah.
kind of be able to see your greater purpose and your reasons for being. So more clinical side of things, let's dive into that. How does this kind of help? What can
Yeah.
people come to hypnosis for if they're kind of interested?
So I think the interesting thing about something like past life, uh, and someone might think that they've got some unexplainable behavior, belief, fear, whatever, and there's nothing really happened to them, so it could be from past life. The way that I see past life and even your current life experiences and how this fits into, I'll tie this to clinical hypnotherapy. But for me, it doesn't matter too much about whether it's past life or current life. It's still a part of the mind. So we're a sort of, I guess there's a wider consciousness, an accumulation of all experience. So there's people there is sometimes people will come for a past life regression hoping to resolve some issue like a fear of public speaking or fear of spiders or something. And they may think, well, I've got no rational reason. But the thing about memory is that we very rarely remember very much. And even recalling memories it's not the most reliable thing. Because what you're doing is, there's a good saying, and I don't know who said it, but it says that the best way to preserve a memory is to never remember it, because every time you try to recall it, you'll be distorting it. And it's a bit like if you think about maybe a car crash and there's two statements taken from two people, and they can be completely opposing, even though both of them actually saw the same thing. So memories can be a little bit sort of unreliable. Now, the thing about the way that I work with hypnotherapy is that I recognise that there may be a part of the mind that is affected by past life, or it may be a part of the mind that this person remembers or has an idea, or it may be a part of the mind that is unconscious, that maybe they've got a fear of spiders and their mother had a fear of spiders. And at the age of, now when I was talking about that pre-operational stage, that's where your brain's like a sponge. It's learning everything. It's taking in it's basically you're trying to learn to survive. You need to learn to survive. So you'll take your learnings from your parents, usually the people that have survived. They're your role models. So you'll take a lot of their behaviors, a lot of their beliefs, a lot of their flaws, and just as they've probably taken it from theirs. And this is why this generational curse type thing they talk about, trying to clear this generational stuff. But that can be taken on a learned behavior from a young age. The way that I recognize the mind working is that technically, like we said about 5 minutes ago, it's a conflict. there's a part of the mind that may have this irrational fear or anxiety or depression or whatever it is, but there's another part of the mind that is sitting thinking, why do I keep feeling like this? What, I need to see a hypnotherapist. So there's that part. So there's this conflict, right? Now the cool thing about that is that then technically means that there's a part of the mind, whether it's past life, whether it's unconscious from learning from parents, whether it's something that happened, doesn't matter. It's a part of the mind that holds a deep belief. It's gained some experience from somewhere, and in a way, it's kind of isolated from this other part of the mind that is sitting going, why do I feel like that? That's not helping me. So if the mind holds the belief and the mind holds the perception of whatever's happened and is creating the behavior, and the mind also knows that it shouldn't feel like that and knows how it wants to feel, then technically what you're trying to do is resolve this conflict. Let the mind correct itself. Let the mind come together with these conflicting parts. And it's usually, you'll find a lot of the time, you've probably heard of a lot of people talking about the inner child and inner child healing. And that's usually a part of the mind that has developed at a child level and taken on a mummy doesn't love me because she's always been working and I'm not this liked, and all these years later she get this depression that she's not loved, and it was all because of the perceptions and beliefs that she took on as a child. But this child part seems to still exist in isolation from other parts of the mind, and this is what we're doing, is we're trying to say, okay, there's this, you use imagination, you utilize imagination, that's what I do, and help that part to come forward. That's the unconscious mind, to bring this part forward that is holding these beliefs, these perceptions. And sometimes people say it's like it's me as 3 years old, or and she looks sad, and then you'll say, okay, let's bring in a helper, bring in a wise part. So sometimes you get them as a mature person, older, or you sometimes get strange stuff like some sort of spiritual being or a guide or something. So I'll leave it to the mind. It can be, I've had metaphorical stuff like shapes and objects that have came forward as well. And technically, even the young child, as much as even an object, it's still a metaphorical representation of the mind, a construct of that part of the problem. And by changing that metaphorical, I guess, perception, it's helping the problem to change. So a long way around about there is clinical hypnotherapy. What I'm doing is trying to resolve all these mindset issues, lack of confidence, belief in yourself, anxieties, depressions, fears, phobias. They're all basically generated by some part of the mind, but utilizing the mind and they're unconscious as well. Otherwise, if you were consciously could change it, you would just say, okay, switch off that anxiety. That's not any good. That's a lot better now. But who can do that? So that's where go to the unconscious level and start to try and help to change these beliefs, change these perceptions. So that's my take on hypnotherapy and the way that I work. Other people might explain it in different ways, but that's my perception.
And I think it was very easily to understand. It's like holding, not consciously, but unconsciously, these two opposing beliefs
Yeah,
in a way, and about bringing them together to be congruent or to accept, or, letting the mind know, like the mind and the body knows how to heal.
yeah,
It knows how to move the energy or however you want to visualize it, but it's allowing that space to allow that to kind of
yeah. And
unfold.
and here's where it's cool. So I'm talking about parts of the mind, and it's called ego states. They're called personas. They also call parts. Parts therapy is a sort of comes out of things like NLP and hypnosis. But in a cool way, it's looking at, there's all these parts. If you start to then look at a life, and in a past life, an accumulation of past lives, we're an accumulation of parts of lives. And then if you go to that whole higher concept of that we're all one, then in a way that you are me and I am you, we're all part of the same collective. So it's almost like a continuing model that starts off as the source, God, whatever you want to call it, and then we're all aspects, and we are all facets of this God or source, energy, consciousness, experiencing. And then we break down into then we've got these souls, which then have experiences of lives. But then within these lives, we've then got all these other parts of us. We've got these different personas that accumulate to become what we are. So it's like this continuous breaking down. And this is where the conflicts, how they come about, is that we've got these personas, these ego states that have developed. And I'll give you a perfect example of how ego states work. Imagine your front door goes and you open the door and it's your best friend. Now you'll have a whole pile of unconscious expressions. Your voice pitch may go up, so you'll go, "Oh, how are you doing? It's really good to see." Your hands will come up with that. You lifted your shoulders up, so there'll be a whole muscles moving, facial expressions, pitch in your voice going up. Your hands coming out, you're open, your body language is open. All these things are happening. There's a whole persona that's coming to the forefront to interact with your friend. But if you then imagine it was a salesperson that you opened the door to and they were really pushy and they were saying, "Look, I just want you to buy this thing. It's a really good product. What is your problem with it?" And they've got their foot on your door. You're not going to be going, "Oh, how are you doing? It's so good to see you." You'll be like, "Get your foot out my door." Like, I'm not. So there'll be this defensive interest. The body language will come down. And in a way, if it was a pet or a dog, you're not going to go up to a dog and say, "Oh, how are you doing? It's so good to see you." You're probably going to do something silly like, "Oh, he's a lovely boy," and rub the hair and rub the fur. But you're not going to open your door to your best friend and go, "Oh, he's a lovely girl. Look at you rubbing her hair." So you've got all these sort of personas that come for different situations. Learn personas, just like someone that may work. I need to watch, I'm going fast here, and I need to watch the Scottish accent. People start to not be able to understand me when I speak too fast. But when you think about, what was I going with that? Yeah. So Carl Jung talks about the shadow, and this is this parts of us that are unhealed. So like we were saying, this 3-year-old child that comes forward that's not loved, that's another part, another ego state that in your life you'll suddenly be feeling depressed and thinking, "Why am I depressed? And why do I just feel like no one loves me?" And you can't explain it, but there's a part of you that is being triggered in some way and it's unhealed, and it's just that other part. And even when your best friend comes, the friend ego state comes back, but then after maybe a few hours, here comes this other part, and you can see it. It's so fascinating to watch people. You can actually make people's ego states change. You could say to someone like, "Oh, I heard about that really bad news, that I don't know, you crashed your car and oh, it was horrible." So there we go. There's the ego state. It was horrible. The head comes down, the shoulders come down, and they start sort of speaking. "Yeah, it was really bad. I totally wrecked my car, and insurance is going to be sky high now." And the tone of the voice, and I say, "Yeah, it's terrible." And then I say, "But I heard you've got a bit of good news. Is it that you've met this new girlfriend or something?" "Oh yeah." And then there's a sudden change. The whole body language changes, and there's these ego states coming and going. So yeah. So that's technically how I see everything, is that we are just this accumulation of experience that all eventually all connects together all the way up. So we think that we are a person, but we're an accumulation of experience and of these different personas, which then would then just keep expanding out into past life experiences, and that's all within us as well. Someone that's got a fear of flying may have been shot down in a fighter plane or something in World War II, but they can't get on a flight, and so there's this other almost unhealed ego state that's got a fear of flying, thinking, "I will die if I go on an airplane," scared to go back on an airplane. And it's just all this accumulation of who we are, right up to source.
That was so beautifully said. Thank you. It was just so easy to understand the ego states and how they can change and where they come from. And I would love to talk about the between lives. Kind of touched on it a little bit. I think like the whole fractal kind of coming down from source and
Yeah.
how the bits kind of get disjointed. But yeah, what is this concept of between lives? I think everybody's familiar with past lives, but I would love to dive into between lives.
Yeah. So the concept almost come. It's actually, there was a guy called Dr. Michael Newton who wrote books and did a lot of research back in the 80s, and wrote Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, and he called it the life between lives. And he did something like 7,000 test cases over his career, and he tried to kind of do it in a sort of scientific way of just working with different people. And what was happening was that all these people were saying the same thing. So he stumbled into it by accident. I think there was some client that came to him and they had this unexplainable issue that they couldn't seem to resolve, and he used hypnosis. And probably back then their sort of use of hypnosis was probably, I would say, probably primitive, because it used to take them hours and hours to do the sessions. And I think there's a lot quicker ways now, and there's so many. Hypnosis now comes from lots of different perspectives. Like even stage hypnosis now has people that are clinical hypnotherapists utilize some of the stuff that gets used on stage because it's quicker. Yeah, so that Dr. Michael Newton, he was taking people through past lives to help them, and then it was what happened then when they died. And as he started to go work with all these different people, they were all saying the same thing, that we are part of soul groups, that we have guides, we have we're here to learn, and that so he was getting all these different people saying the same thing. So between life to me is I've shortened it, but it's I just call it between lives, and a lot of other people sometimes call it that as well. But it's technically what your experience is when you're not in a physical awareness. And again, this physical world isn't physical. This world is a energetic construct. Look at quantum physics. It will start going right away down. It suddenly becomes that there's no physical matter. Everything's energy. It's atoms to proton, neutrons, then down to quarks, which are events that are appearing and disappearing. So, and the atom, that's 99.999999996% space. There's no physical. There's nothing really physical. It's that we're here in some kind of perception, a constructed energetic experience where we can learn. We can go through the dramas of life. We can interact with each other and learn from each other and learn from our experiences. And that's what each of our lives are. When I do past lives, it all seems to be about, it can be the simplest and basic of life, but it may just be learning about love, learning about family, learning about being on your own and surviving on your own. It could be, there's so many, every life will have a different learning and bring that accumulation of learning and experience to what we are. And this between life is really the higher level of looking at it. It's almost like the stage where you would be planning these lives, the part where you've got the higher wisdom and you're more aware of, because here we've got this amnesia where we don't remember any of that just now. But for me, it's like putting on a pair of virtual reality goggles. You come into this game and here we are. In fact, I put a lot of stuff on Instagram and I call it a game. This is what it's like. We're learning, we're a little character bobbing along, and then it comes to a ghost and it gets killed and it goes back to the start. And you don't sit and go, oh my God, my little character's just been killed, and floods of tears. You don't get all that emotion. You just think, okay, let's start again. And I get stuck at that. So let me jump. Well, there we go. We're past it, up to the next level. And there we go. There's 2 more ghosts. Let's try jump. So you've learned a skill here. You've got jump. And you keep building this accumulation of learning until you master the game and you complete the game. And then you could turn around and be a guide to someone to say, oh, level 74, that was a tough one. Try doing something like this and I think you'll get it. And then they'll master the game as well. So that's it between life. It's this where you go after death. Or actually, I don't think it's where you go after death. For me, it's what you reawaken to. You reawaken to your more truer state of awareness, that connection back to source as well.
Yeah, Yeah. There's very much more than meets the eye of this reality. And I think when we sometimes are stuck in whatever we are in this 3D reality life we're living, for me to have that perspective of that bigger picture really helps to
Yeah.
be put yourself off the hook and, oh, okay, what am I learning right now? Because I know I'm
Mm.
here for a reason. This is happening for me.
Yeah, that's the best way to look at it. Is,
Yeah.
okay, why am I going through this? What do I need to learn? Get me through this experience as quick as possible because I don't like it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I was just thinking when you were talking about all of that, creating our reality and what we focus on is what we see. Our frequency is what we frequently see. And I was thinking about there's tons of experiments, but one of the more popular ones that I've heard of over and over again is the double slit experiment, where they're just throwing random, I think, protons or something at the wall,
Yeah,
and there's two slits. And when the scientist is actually watching it, that's when they actually change. They actually go straight through the two slits where they expected it would
yeah,
go. But when nobody was there, when no scientist was watching, they
yeah,
just randomly went all
yeah.
over the place.
That's what blew science apart way
Yeah.
back in the 1920s when quantum physics started to come about. It kind of blew this whole understanding of physics is physical, isn't it? Physical physics. So it suddenly blew it all apart. And now we've got this realization, like you're saying, the double split experience is showing you that you're creating the reality. So that's what we are. We are creator beings. We're here having an experience, and we can create our lives in any way that we want to create our life. There's probably some pre uh, determined idea of what we will go through and what we will experience to help us to learn and experience what we want to experience to grow. Um, but with free will, we could choose to completely ignore that and just live a completely different life and come back another life and redo it again. So we are. This is the thing. It's realizing that we are creator beings. We can we can manifest anything. We can manifest a life. We can create the life in whatever way. And even people might say, like, well, I'm um, I've had no break in life. I started off in poverty, but there's people that have made it out of that as well. There's a who was I was reading? I was reading a what's his name? I forgot his name now, but um, it was all about this guy who'd lost his legs and had been burnt in a fire, and but this guy made a real success of his life, even though he went through such adverse and terrible experiences. But it was his mind that decided that wouldn't limit him, it wouldn't stop him from being successful, and he had a happy life, even though probably other people might take the alcohol and think that life's terrible because of the misfortune that they've had in life. And I guess all of these experiences again bring the it shows the strength of your mind, what you're able to overcome. I mean, it was a while back. I was at this gala, this kind of charity ball thing, where it was a woman who had lost her daughter was murdered. Um, she was only about 14 or something. Terrible story. But the thing that I recognised when I was sitting at this gala was that look what this girl has done. She was only in her late 20s or something. And I'm thinking it's incredible. What she did was she went through such a terrible experience. She had no support for her. She had to suffer through this experience and live with it and struggle through the mental issues it must have caused her. But then what she did was she then set up a charity to start connecting other people that have lost children to these kind of organisations and providing support and help. And there she was at this big gala that she had taken this charity. Now that was a horrible experience and a terrible experience, but out of that experience gave her an opportunity to almost to sort of to shine to show what her soul is and create these amazing this support network that she created, this charity, and this is something that you see from this between life state, is sometimes there's soul agreements made where it may be that, okay, your experience will be to overcome adversity and to try and overcome your challenges. You've got all that potential to do something wonderful. I'll be the daughter that may come in, and I'll leave early, and then you'll then be left to. So sometimes there's soul agreements, and this comes through these books again, like Dr. Michael Newton, where these 7,000 test cases. It was a common theme that these people are saying that it's almost like the soul group make an agreement. They'll come down, and very often it's the same people, the same souls that will play different. It's like a stage play or something where you've all got different characters, and this character is going to be mean to you and hard, but it's that's your kind of opportunity to maybe be stronger and to stand up to that person and not allow someone to control you. Or so there's so many dynamics that seem to be able to kind of come out of these arrangements, and it's all for our growth. And it's like we said at the start, a little character that comes along and dies. You don't go, oh my God, Super Mario is dead. Oh, he goes way back to the start and he starts again. And that's because there is no death. There is only, like you say, death to me is the reawakening back, taking the goggles back off and going, oh, I'm back again. And let's have a laugh about that. Do you remember when you did that to me? And so.
Yeah, and I'm kind of tearing up because I've had experiences with significant people in my life where I've had dreams where they've come to me at a soul level, not like they were in real life whatsoever, very loving, just God-like, just heart open. And I was told, like, I was always there with you. This was, I love you this much that I came into your life to show you this. And when we're going through whatever we're going through, just to remember that perspective, like we talked about, everything is happening for us. And, this reality that we live in is duality, and that contrast helps us grow. That's what helps, like the schoolroom earth. That's what helps progress us. Our soul doesn't care. Like it wants us to learn the lesson. We want to experience it all. In order to experience pleasure and the joy, we need to understand that pain as well, and knowing that we can manifest it.
Yeah, and everyone may have different paths, so there is no right or wrong in this world. So it may be that someone is here to experience pure joy or to find joy from a bad experience, or it may be that someone's here to be a horrible person, to be nasty to someone, to help. There's another little story I tell clients sometimes to help them understand, and it's, imagine that there's so let's imagine this girl who is in a relationship, and the relationship's horrible. The guy he's very nasty. He is physically and mentally abusive, puts her down a lot, and she loves him. She believes that he is someone really good, but then this nasty side keeps coming. His insecurities all play out. And you could say to that person, what if I click my fingers and the whole relationship disappears? You're out of that relationship and you're just free to move on now without all this emotional stuff. And she would probably go, yes, just get me out of this. It's hell. I'm being physically abused, mentally abused. I feel so bad. But I feel this love that I just can't get away from him. And so then imagine 5 years pass, and she's get out of that relationship eventually. But she meets this other guy, and this other guy starts saying things, nasty things, and he goes to hit her one time. And he goes, wait a minute, this is exactly the same situation as before. I'm not going down that road again. So she then moves on, and let's say another 5 years, she's now married. She's met this lovely guy who she's maybe got 2 children. And you could go to her then and say, in this 10 years time, say, do you remember 10 years ago I said, if I click my finger, all of that situation would disappear? What if I do it now and it all disappears? And she would think, that's who I am now. That's all my experiences have made me who I am. If I hadn't experienced that first relationship, then I might not have been able to avoid that second relationship. And then I could have been away down for a number of years with that guy, going through a horrible relationship, never met my current husband, and had these lovely children that I've got. So take all that away, and you take away all my experiences, all my learning, all the growth that I have went through to come to this stronger person that was able to even get out of that relationship in the first place. It was maybe really challenging and difficult, but she found strength within herself to get away from that relationship. So that's just a little one example of a million billion possibilities on what circumstances in life can be about. But that's just one to show you that sometimes the hard and difficult circumstances and situations offer you the greatest opportunities to grow and to learn.
Oh, that's beautiful. And that was very similar to my story I was referring to too, of course. I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, of course. But I think that's a beautiful way to start to close the show down. Was there anything else, Stephen, that you feel called to share or wrap up before we start to say our goodbyes?
Not a lot. I mean, there is so much you can talk about here. Even some of the experiences that you then get from this between life. It doesn't even need to be Earth lives. It could be all into all the other stuff that so you've heard of all these concepts. I don't like them because they get branded a lot around and star seeds and light beings, but the concept is that we're not always necessarily just a human being, but we can be other experiences. We can experience in different places and maybe even have been and are here helping. So yes, it's a big topic. We could probably spend hours talking about all this stuff and how the whole spiritual concept of it all, but I think we've covered quite a little bit. I think we managed to get most of it, some of it in.
Beautiful. Yeah, we're just going to have you back on and dive deeper into all that spiritual
Yeah.
aspects as well. But thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on here and sharing your heart and your wisdom with us all today. We close the show out the same way every single week. How may we, as the listeners, as a huge act of gratitude, be of service for you in return today?
Yeah. Let's say that's a question. I'll just wait and see what pops into my mind. And two things pop in. One is, I guess, for me, I guess what I do is I share a lot of stuff. So if it's similar like Instagram, it's just Stephen Towill _ hypnotherapy. I share lots of fun, comical memes, spiritual memes, positive memes. So things about my sessions. So what I do is I pretty much use Instagram to share a lot of funniness and joy, and I think so. I guess what you could say is look at some of that stuff that will help you. That will make you laugh. That will bring joy to your life every morning. Funny stuff. But I think really of all the things that I've ever learned, it's simple, and it's love yourself. Make sure that you love yourself and look after yourself, but then help others. And it comes to that. Have you ever heard that little story about on an airplane? If they always say if the cabin loses pressure, put your you put your oxygen mask on first. Otherwise, if you turn around to help someone else, you could lose consciousness and then nobody gets helped. So it's always about loving yourself and looking after yourself. And then when you can do that, you can help other people as well. So it's to share that. It sounds corny, love or something, but to share that, yeah, love for yourself and then share it with other people. And I think that is the key thing is to help me, help yourself, because when we all help ourselves, we help the collective and we all elevate together.
Amen. Amen. I know it is so cheesy that a lot of people talk about self-love now and all that kind of stuff, but really that's the answer. That
Yeah,
really is the answer. And that is doing, I don't want to say the hard work, but looking inward too. Loving
yeah,
yourself enough to say, hey, there's something up. I might need
yeah,
help, hypnotherapy or whatever it is for you to show
yeah.
up to love yourself and to know yourself at a deeper level.
100%. And when we do that, then that's where we can help other people. Some people jump in to help other people without helping themselves,
Yeah.
and they'll struggle because they've not healed, they've not overcame their own challenges, and it'll give them a difficult life probably. But they might even bypass helping other people by not helping themselves as well. But to remember that we're here as to experience and to learn and to grow, and that's the main thing. But then we can share that. We share when we've healed ourselves, when we love ourselves, then we'll come from a place of love. We won't come from the insecurity. we won't come from the fears and fears are the big things that hold us back from, like we says, creating the lives that we want. So we can work on that and resolve our fears and resolve our things that are blocks and things that hold us back. Then we can share that and help other people to then elevate as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All of humanity, all of consciousness starts with us, because we're not just the ocean, one drop in the ocean, we're the entire ocean in one drop. Another
Yeah.
I overuse that quite a lot for Rumi, but it so easily depicts what you're
Yeah.
saying.
I use that all the time as well. We're like one little droplet of water that's experiencing disconnection from the ocean for a split second, and then we return back to it again.
Yeah.
And we become the ocean.
Well, on that note, we're gonna drop this episode back into the ocean. Thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on here today. It was such an honor and pleasure to talk with you.
You too, Lauren. No, nice. Thanks for having me on as well.